Many college football fans seem to have come to the conclusion that the transfer portal killed the importance of high school recruiting in college football after Indiana did what they did last year. But when you actually look at how the last few national champions built their rosters, it shows why the strong chance of Ohio State landing Christopher Vargas and staying in the fight for David Gabriel Georges is such good news for the building of the next core and possibly the next national championship team at the Ohio State University. I know a lot of college football fans saw Indiana going 16-0. Now they're thinking college football, the way we've known it is over and done as we once knew it. Recruiting doesn't matter as much as we thought. Even the SEC kind of fallen off a little bit has made people think that nowadays you can just hit the portal, go for a quarterback, a few difference makers, and you can win it all pretty easily if you hit it right in the portal. But the actual evidence tells us a much clearer story. And that story is why the latest developments with Vargas and George should actually give Buckeye fans a whole lot of real encouragement about how this program is trying to build itself moving forward. There are so many temptations nowadays to not pay attention to recruiting, I guess you could say. It can be easy to think, commitments don't stick, or the transfer portal is looming every year, so if we don't get a recruit, we're just going to look to the transfer portal anyway. And it seems like you don't even build a winner in recruiting anymore by the way some people act. But Ohio State is not like the rest of the country. And although the Buckeyes disappointed in the postseason last year and lost a whole lot of guys to the portal, I don't think that is going to be the norm for Buckeye fans. So in this episode of the Buckeye Huddle podcast, I, JR, am going to walk you through evidence that shows how championship teams construct their rosters still today and why the predictions of Ohio State to get the top quarterback in the 2028 class and the fact that David Gabriel Georges publicly shut down the commitment rumor are genuinely good news for the Buckeyes. Not because they're already proof of anything, but because Ohio State needs exactly this kind of talent to restock the young core that wins national championships, as they've done time and time again. So you got a pretty good blueprint for it now at this point. So if we keep pretending one portal heavy title changes the entire model, we're going to miss what actually has to happen for Ohio State to get back at the top and stay there, winning it all. I mean, they're already at the top, but you get what I'm saying, winning it all 1 year. So I'm JR with Buckeye Huddle. Come on over and join us. Check us out over there at buckeyehuddle.com and get them on the message boards with guys like me, Kevin Noon, Andrew Ellis, Mark Givler, and more coming as well. So let's get into this episode as we talk about it. A lot of college football fans have been pushing this idea that high school recruiting doesn't matter as much anymore because of what Indiana did with the portal last season. But when you look at how national championship rosters have been built, including Indiana's, the evidence shows something completely different. And it has major implications for what Ohio State needs to do right now. Take the Indiana roster last year, for example. It wasn't built primarily through flashy transfer portal additions like everyone thinks it was. Were there some in there? Sure, there were some transfer portal additions in there, but it wasn't all built by them. You see, a strong example of this is linebacker Elijah Hardy, a zero-star recruit out of high school who originally signed with Navy. After spending 2023 at the Naval Academy Preparatory School, he transferred to Indiana in 2024 with no real college production to speak of. But his sophomore year in 2025, Hardy started every game, led the team in tackles, and posted 15 tackles for loss, 8 sacks, while helping anchor one of the nation's top run defenses in the nation. He was part of a larger group of overlooked and kind of zero-star prospects who were developed into key contributors through coaching, scheme, and culture rather than arriving as well-established producers, showing that winning in college football has become more about development and coaching than just high-profile transfers. The Hoosiers also retained meaningful continuity from the previous regime. They kept 25 high school signees originally recruited by Tom Allen, and they weren't just like walk-on guys, right? They were players who actually played, and at least 7 of them became multi-game or full-time starters throughout their championship run. Also, Cignetti brought in multiple players with him from James Madison. This is something that gets overlooked. Those two groups provided continuity with the staff and the school and led buy-in during the transition to Kirk Cignetti. While strategic transfers did help fill specific gaps, nobody can deny that, Indiana's success came largely from maximizing their core players who were familiar with the school and coaching staff rather than relying on a complete portal overhaul for the team, which is exactly what Ohio State is doing right now. Create the core players through recruiting and supplement it through the portal. Now, a lot of people scoff at those explanations because Indiana won the national championship last season with Fernando Mendoza at quarterback, and honestly, for some people, it's easier to just go from base your entire opinion based on who the first year transfer from Cal was. Also, naturally, when people saw that, they immediately concluded that the portal had changed the college football game forever, and now college football as we know it is completely different. But when you actually examine how Kirk Cignetti bought the roster, like I just did, it wasn't a pure one-year portal construction project. Did they get a one-time transfer portal quarterback? Yes, they did. Cignetti brought a core of players. Cignetti also brought a core of players with him from James Madison who had already been in the program for multiple years. Elijah Surratt, Aiden Fisher, D'Angelo Pons, Mikael Kamara. Those guys were already developed within his system before they even got to Bloomington. The foundation was already there with some of the guys. You had guys like Carter Smith and others who were on the team, Charlie Becker, right? Mendoza was the final piece on top of an existing core, not the entire roster, all themselves being from the portal. That brings us to the real evidence from the last few teams, all right? So let's go through some of the last few national champions and see how they actually built their teams. Let's start with 2019 LSU Tigers. They were the first champions of kind of the portal era. They didn't really have portal players, but you get what I'm saying, like kind of that time period there. So Joe Burrow was the big transfer story, but he was already in his second year in the program. If people don't remember that his first year there was not exactly the best, and they won it all in his second year. The rest of the roster looked like Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Lloyd Cushenberry, Patrick Queen, Jacob Phillips. I don't think I'm missing anybody there. They were all developed inside the program from high school recruits, and a lot of them very highly rated high school recruits too. That was a core that had been built over multiple years. You go to the 2020 Alabama team that followed the exact same model there. Mac Jones was throwing to Devontae, I guess not exact same. Mac Jones wasn't a transfer like Joe Burrow was, but he was throwing to Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, and John Mechie. Najee Harris was in the backfield. The trenches had Landon Dickerson, Will Anderson, Christian Barmore, Patrick Surtain Jr. was locking down the secondary. Almost every major contributor on that championship roster was a high school recruit and a highly rated high school recruit who had been developed within Nick Saban's system over multiple seasons. But I get it. 2020 doesn't count. Okay. Fine, whatever. Georgia's back-to-back titles in 2021 and 2022 tell a very similar story. You had Stetson Bennett, who had taken the JUCO route before returning to college, but the core of both those teams was built through high school recruiting and development. You're talking Zamir White, James Cook, Brock Bowers, Jermaine Burton, Ladd McConkey, A.D. Mitchell, N'Kobe Dean, Nolan Smith. I'm probably forgetting a few people here. Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis was there, Keely Ringo, who got burnt by Marv, but it is what it is. These were players who had been in the program and developed together. Darian Kendrick was one of the few portal additions, and he was kind of the exception that proved to be the rule. And then you get into it with Michigan in 2023. Their championship team had a strong homegrown foundation, also a little bit of a strong homegrown advantage too. They will deny it, but we all know. But they had guys like J.J. McCarthy, Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards, Roman Wilson, Colston Loveland, Will Johnson. The Mason Graham, Junior Colson. These were players who had been recruited and developed within the program. The portal additions like AJ Bonner and Josiah Stewart helped fill specific needs, but the core was already in place. And then the one we're most familiar with, Ohio State's own 2024 national championship team team followed the same pattern. They had a few more transfer guys come in and fill spots. Will Howard, Quinshon Judkins, and Caleb Downs came through the portal, and those were probably some of the biggest names. Obviously, Seth McLaughlin, but he wasn't even in the national championship run in the playoffs. So, but beyond those, I mean, the rest of the roster was overwhelmingly made up of guys originally recruited by Ohio State: Emeka Ibuka, Jeremiah Smith, Jack Sawyer, Sonny Styles, JT Tuimoloau, Donovan Jackson. The portal guys were players the staff wanted to add to an already strong core, not players they needed because they had failed in recruiting and developed their own. Some of these guys they actually got because they recruited them before, right? Caleb Downs, they would not have got him if they were not so successful recruiting him before. The pattern across all of these, I think that's 7 national champions, is pretty consistent. Every single one of them had a core that was built primarily through high school recruiting and multi-year development. The portal was used as a supplement to fill specific gaps, not as the foundation of the roster. That's an important distinction. Indiana looks looks a little bit different, but only because Kirk Sneddie won his championship in his second year coaching there, and so he brought some players with him from James Madison to do that. Ed Orgeron was the next closest with 4 years at LSU, and of course he got fired a couple years later. And then every other national champion since then, their coach was there in their 6th year or later at that school. This is why the latest developments with Christopher Vargas and David Gabriel Georges should be viewed as genuinely good news for Ohio State, and not just recruiting doesn't matter, wake me up, when they actually get here. Not because these guys have already proven anything, but because the Buckeyes need exactly this kind of talent to build the next young core. On the quarterback side, Mark Givler and I already started talking about the likelihood that Ohio State would land Christopher Vargas out of St. John's Prep on our Jet Harrison commitment live stream. We were talking about it there. Guys over at Rivals like Steve Wiltfong and I think another one also put in predictions. They're starting to put in, starting to look like they agree with us putting in predictions for Ohio State to land the top quarterback in the 2028 class. I mean, Vargas is 6'4", quarterback who's already shown kind of some CJ Stroud traits a little bit to his game. The Buckeyes hosted him recently, and he was the best high school quarterback to visit campus when he came. Ohio State offered him back in November of 2024, and he's also hearing from of course, the usual suspects: Oregon, Alabama, Auburn. I don't think they stand a chance, but maybe they got the money for him. That's what it is. So the Buckeyes are going to be in a financial battle here for sure. What makes this particularly encouraging is how it fits with what Ryan Day has already proven he can be. Day has a track record of developing quarterbacks. Obviously, we all know this. Haskin, Fields, Stroud, even Will Howard, right? Vargas has already said he wants a place where the coaching staff will develop him as both a player and a person. Music to the Buckeye fans' ears, right? that alignment matters. After Julian Sayin and then after Tavian St. Clair, because he's going to get his shot after Sayin, obviously, having other upside development quarterbacking behind them already in the pipeline gives Ohio State the chance to continue building from within, creating that core of players. On the running back side, David Gabriel Georges remains Ohio State's top target in the 2027 class, at least top target uncommitted at this point. He's the 5-star back who everyone is talking about. He's obviously considered Ohio State, Tennessee, Ole Miss. You live under a rock if you don't, or you just don't live under a rock. You have to not be following recruiting, actively trying to get away from recruiting to not know some of this stuff. So there's been some noise this week from a Rivals report citing his uncle saying that he made a decision, and then George came out publicly, shut down the rumors immediately. He said he hasn't told anyone anything yet, which tracks. I haven't been given any indication that David Gabriel Georges has made up his mind, and if he did, knowing his recruitment the way it's gone, I think he would just come out and commit already and not wait until July 22nd. Now, does he have a strong leaning? Sure. I think his strong leaning right now is Ohio State, but we'll see. And everyone knows how big this commitment would be. The last time Ohio State signed a 5-star running back was Travion Henderson in 2021, who they won a national championship with. No big deal, right? The Buckeyes need that kind of explosive every down back to build the next core of their team around, especially as Jeremiah Smith enters his final season and the offense needs to replace production from multiple multiple spots after this year and most likely next year too. Now, Bo Jackson's not going anywhere, or at least we think he's not. Hopefully they will have the financial compensation. I did a video on that, which, got a lot of people upset, but that's fine. I don't think people understood exactly what I was saying. It's fine. Landing a back like David Gabriel Georges talent would be a foundational piece for the 2027, 2028, and 2029 teams. The same way elite running backs have been foundational for championship teams that we just talked about. This is what most people miss when they talk about the portal era. The last few national champions didn't win with enormous one-year rental transfer portal classes. They won with cores that were recruited out of high school to that program or coaching staff, and then they used portal players to supplement them. Ohio State added a quarterback. If Ohio State adds a quarterback like Vargas and staying in the mix for an elite back like David Gabriel Georges, is about building the same kind of core. Does that mean that every recruit is going to be at Ohio State for all 5 years? No, of course not. But in this day and age of college football, if you recruit them and you keep the most valuable players who you develop, you are set to make a lot of noise, not just in the regular season, but in the playoffs and then in your conference as well. After the 2025 season, Ohio State has some significant core pieces entering their final years. Jeremiah Smith is the best receiver in the country, and he's playing his last season in 2026. We all know this. He's not sticking around. It is what it is. The offensive line and defense will start losing key contributors if the Buckeyes want to compete for championships in 2027, 2028, and beyond. They have to keep being successful at restocking the core of the team with high upside high school talent, which they have done so well before. It's one of the reasons why Ohio State is the most consistent program in college football. This is exactly what the past few national champions, did as well. They didn't wait until they were already in a hole and then try to fix everything with a one portal cycle. They added talent and they built it up, developed that either elite high school talent or just developed their players into being elite players. So the core stayed strong year after year, or they just struck it right with that 1 year like LSU kind of did, right? And today this matters even more. In the expanded playoff era, you're not just trying to win one game in January. Teams need to have the depth and the chemistry to make multiple deep runs over several seasons. That kind of sustained contention requires a core that has been built and developed together, not just a collection of one-year transfers who are gone after a single season. As much as it can be tempting to think high school recruiting is now overrated and everyone can get what they need in the portal and everything else, the Buckeye staff knows that it is not the truth and is operating with the understanding that they have to go out and recruit and keep building that core up. Just like how the portal isn't everything, just like how roster retention isn't everything in college football today, there is no one answer that will have you be able to win it all. The best programs in the country are the ones who can build the core, supplement with transfers, and give high quality coaching on top of that. Fortunately for Ohio State fans, those are all areas where the Buckeyes are killing it right now. Thanks for listening to the Buckeye Huddle podcast. If this gives you a clearer picture of how championship teams are actually built, hit subscribe for daily Buckeye analysis with new episodes every Sunday through Thursday at 7 p.m. and drop your take in the comments about what we discussed in this video. Do you think Vargas or George are the next most important pieces for building Ohio State's next young core? Let me know, and we'll see you next time. Go Bucks.